that it almost seems as if India has taken over the promenade. You got Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, and this huge India pavilion. And Wipro, Infosys, HCL, some of the people at WEF were saying it seems as if India has taken over WEF this year.
Well, India is the future, and most parts of the world today recognize that the talent pool that India has to offer, the leadership that we have to offer, the policies of the government which are very focused to an emerging strong country, and the fact that we have 1 billion plus people, mostly youngsters, aspiring for a better quality of life, provides the world's greatest opportunity for other countries. And therefore, we were very keen that the world sees India in full strength. All the states have interacted with me over the last 2-3 days. They're all very excited to be here to showcase their states. This kind of healthy competition, yet the India first spirit amongst all states, irrespective of political affiliation, will help us show to the world India should be your destination.
For the last couple of years, it seemed as if India was poised for takeoff, but something or the other always held us back, whether it was the pandemic initially, the Ukraine-Russia war now, rising in interest rates, inflation. Is that been a bit of a bummer for you because you've been kind of poised for takeoff but not really taking off just
Well, all of the issues you mentioned were before every country in the world.
Sure.
So in that sense, we relatively were better off. We were able to be very nimble in our decision making, in our policies. We were able to quickly align ourselves to the needs of the people of India. You saw the announcements yesterday. Very, very well thought out, very well crafted policies to address challenges of inflation, and also showing to the world that this is a country which is very responsive to the times. You saw how during COVID, Prime Minister Modi led from the front, how he was able to rejig our health systems, rejig our business policies, open up the economy, reform different sectors. So I think converting a crisis into an opportunity is something we've seen Prime Minister Modi do, whether it was in Gujarat for almost 12-13 years, now 8 years in Delhi, and that's something which has really endeared him to the people of India.
Inflation is a big challenge. You've gone in a big step reducing taxation on fuel products. But are you concerned that this could potentially be a losing battle? Like the government has a certain cushion, you're trying to use it, but given global pressures, this is a tough battle to fight?
Not at all. We are looking at various steps. For example, look at ethanol. Now, ethanol is a natural substitute for the crude oil consumption. And the growth in India, 8 years ago when we came into government, India was producing ethanol worth about 400-500 crores. This year, it'll be about 30,000 crores of ethanol alone. And in the next 3 years, as we transition to about 20% ethanol blending in our petrol vehicles, we are looking at a 65-70,000 crore economy on the ethanol alone. Now a $10 billion economy on ethanol substitutes our import requirements, gives that much more money straight to the farmers or to the people engaged in that whole ecosystem, helps us create jobs, helps us create consumption within the country. So the Prime Minister's thinking is very focused on a very balanced, futuristic economic growth, recognizing the changing times. So our transition to, let's say, renewable energy is also the envy of the world. Our effort to bring energy security to India, the new plans that we have to look at international grids. I've just discussed with my counterpart, the investment minister of Saudi Arabia, to try and see if we could further Honorable Prime Minister's idea where he had articulated that one earth, one grid, so that power could flow and renewable energy could flow from one country to the other, given different time zones, and support us in peak hours. So it's really a very holistic thinking that we are working on.
You know, we're walking past now the blockchain hub of Davos 2022, and it's interesting how this year, whether it is cryptocurrencies, NFTs, the Internet of Things, have moved away from just being on the internet to having a very physical presence here at the World Economic Forum. How big a policy challenge is this for government?
I think it's not a policy challenge, it's an opportunity. We are, of course, engaged with blockchain technologies in a big way. The talent pool that India has is serving world markets when it comes to creating blockchain products. In terms of cryptocurrency, I think the world today has realized that it's not something which one can just accept without due diligence and without proper regulatory processes in place. We are looking at a digital currency, with the Honorable Finance Minister announced. But we certainly are clear that unregulated cryptocurrencies cannot provide any alternate payment mechanisms.
But the tax that you've imposed on cryptocurrency trading seems to have sapped a lot of the enthusiasm. A lot of young people your son's age would be very unhappy. We invested so much money and government is now pouring water on our...
Not at all. With the current meltdown of cryptocurrencies, I think the world today is recognizing what we recognized much before. So we recognize that these unregulated cryptocurrencies are not good for the Indian ecosystem. Now the youngsters, whoever may have invested, and I assure you, my son is very, very averse to cryptocurrencies. I think the world is now recognizing.
Age, I say. Yeah. So one of your big successes as Commerce and Industry Minister has been the uptick in merchandise exports. Substantial uptick being seen, even though imports also are going up. But on exports, how sustainable do you see this be? And how concerned are you with the fact that while exports are going up, imports also simultaneously seem to be going up?
First of all, exports are not going up this time around as a matter of chance. They are going up through a design and a very, very focused effort, again led by the Prime Minister on the front foot, where he engaged with missions all over the world, where he looked at all the exporting community, the different sectors, encouraged them to think big, encouraged them to be bold in their ambitions, and we actually exceeded a target which most people believe would never happen. Now we are working for the next year and the year after, and our entire mission is designed to go up to $1 trillion of merchandise exports, $1 trillion of services exports by 2030, and we want it to be a race to the top. And that's the kind of challenges that India today likes to take on, that the world today recognizes that India is well poised to do. As regards imports, I'm not a very particularly worried person about increasing imports for two reasons. Some of it is, of course, largely petroleum product driven. Some of it is coming in the form of gold and diamonds and jewelry. And both of these help our export economy also. But having said that, the other products that come into India now show that there is a demand. And this demand will generate investment activity in India. Unless people would see demand, they are not going to come to India and set up large manufacturing factories or plants.
So wait, now speaking of investment in India, we're walking past the India state lounges. There's Andhra Pradesh, there's Tamil Nadu, there's Maharashtra that follows, Karnataka and Telangana also here. Does this lead to competitiveness? Like a Janpat kind of situation that you come to my shop, you come to my shop. How do you deal with this very natural element that there be competitiveness among states?
You know, before we set out to come to Davos, we engaged with all the states who are participating and the ministers, the chief ministers. And I must share with you, it was such a lovely feeling we got.
That's your state, Maharashtra?
Yeah, where we had the industry minister of, the environment minister of Maharashtra was coming in also on the call, and everybody committed that we are going to be looking at India first. Our focus is going to be to get the India story out as a great story. No politics when you're out of the country, unlike, of course, some leaders. But business-minded and sensible Indian leaders have all committed that our competition among states would be very healthy, in the best interests of India, would only lead to more investments coming into India. And therefore, I think what's happening is good for the country.
One of the Modi government's big promises was that of a $5 trillion economy by 2022 on account of the pandemic. That's pushed back. Do you have a calculation at this moment, Minister, of how long it could be before we hit that target?
Well, I think that's something the economists are more adept at doing and they would be working on it. But my own sense is the way we are calibrating our policies to address these challenges, we'll be able to make up for some of the lost time and the lost opportunity very quickly. We are also seeing a lot of investment activity. I don't know if you notice, for the 7th year running in a row, we've been able to have a record FDI in India again. We've crossed $83 billion last year, despite 2 waves of COVID, despite the war in Ukraine. And that shows that the world recognizes India is the place to be. India is the country which offers a stable future, a large market, talent which can give good outcomes. And I was with the CEO of IBM this morning. Mm-hmm. They have nearly 130,000 people working in India already. And they're looking at literally having 15 to 20,000 new jobs in India every year. They have about 5,000-6,000 people on research, which they are looking at doubling now. And clearly, they see that India is the place where they can add value at the most competitive conditions.
One of the big challenges of the post-pandemic world is that global companies are looking to realign their supply chain, not be dependent on China, have a China plus one kind of formulation. We've seen countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh benefit from it. In the conversations that you're having here at WEF, what are you picking up about how these global corporations are viewing coming and investing in India at this time?
Well, I think what India offers is a whole bouquet. What Vietnam has focused on is 1 or 2 sectors. Bangladesh, in fact, largely one sector. And on both those cases, the advantage that they had so far was the zero duty access for their exports into Europe, into UK. For Bangladesh being a less developed country, for Vietnam because of the FTA that they have with EU. We in India are, of course, have had challenges in trying to get an FTA with these 2 geographies. But right now we are at a very sweet spot. Both UK and EU are engaged with us, especially after a success with Australia and UAE. I think there's a lot of buzz and excitement about doing free trade deals with India. The large market opportunity is exciting for businesses in these countries. Let me give you a simple example. We have JCB in India. If JCB was to manufacture in UK, they wouldn't be able to get 10 countries as their market. But when they manufacture in India, with their technology from UK, they're able to sell to over 100 countries out of India. They become competitive. They're able to capture the markets in a large number of countries because of that price competitiveness. And I think that's where more and more companies realize India is the place to be.
So our government has put curbs on wheat exports. You came out publicly speaking of sending trade delegations. The Prime Minister spoke in April at a public forum about trying to feed the world at a time of crisis. And then there seems to have been a bit of a change in policy. Can you explain the thinking in government between earlier and now and why?
First of all, we are a government which is responsive to changing times. We don't stand like dinosaurs on any one issue until the situation remains normal. Then, of course, things continue as normal. Bear in mind, India's own trade in wheat in the world is amongst the lowest. We hardly had, 0.3-0.5% of the world trade in wheat. Our exports of wheat until 2 years ago was probably under 200,000-300,000 tons. It's only 2 years ago that we went to 2 million, and last year we did 7 million tons of wheat export. But that was a time when our production was high. We had some moderate surpluses which we could export. We were expecting this year also to have a bumper harvest and be able to continue the trend. From 7 million, we were hoping to be able to increase it slightly. But as the whole world is aware, we had a heat wave in the northern parts of India. Production is down. Initial estimates show 5-6% production being down. We'll have to wait for final estimates to come out. At the same time, our exports in February, March of last year, also in April and until the 13th of May when we brought in some curbs, have just skyrocketed. So to give you a perspective, April last year, we exported 240,000 metric tons. April 2022, last month, we exported over 1.3 million metric tons. That's 6x, 5 or 6x. Now with this kind of a rapid landscape change, we felt that it would, in the long run, going forward, say 3 or 4 months, 6 months down the road, it could have very detrimental effect on our food inflation. And therefore, considering the food security of India and all Indians, and at the same time, to ensure the orderly distribution of the grain that we are exporting, we thought some curbs would be good. If you see the notification, we have specifically said we will encourage governments to talk to India, and wherever we can support governments, India stands ready and willing to do that. But for their own domestic requirements, we don't want hoarding and we don't want the grain to be concentrated in a few hands. The idea behind the curbs are to ensure more democratic distribution of grain to the countries which really need it, rather than speculators and hoarders getting a hold of the grain and, let's say, manipulating the market.
But the flip side to this would be those who push for agrarian reform would say when it comes the time of farmers to make money, then the government puts such curbs. And therefore, how are we actually pushing any kind of farming liberalization?
So would Rahul
I agree with
at all, would Rahul Kanwal advocate we let the wheat prices go through the roof? So this is an internationally accepted practice. You saw Indonesia putting curbs on edible oil, palm oil exports from their country last month. Today, 7 or 8 countries have already put curbs on grain exports from their countries. So I think this is a situation where every country in the world always ensures that their own markets remain stable and orderly behavior within their own geographies, and at the same time they would like to ensure that the free market prevails. It's a delicate balance, and India, I think, has been able to continuously demonstrate that we are very much there in the free markets. We are very much a market driven by open and transparent business practices. Having said that, we have also demonstrated that it's India first, our people come first, and our people certainly need and deserve to be protected from unmitigated price increases.
As we come towards this, towards the end of this interview, I want to ask you about concerns being raised here in Europe about India's decision to continue importing oil from Russia. Is that something which, in your interaction with world leaders, is being raised, or have you been able to push and explain India's case?
Incidentally, Rahul, there's no need to push India's case. The sanctions have kept the energy products out of the sanctions. There is no sanction. Nobody is stopping us from importing oil from Russia. By the way, I'm sure you read or you heard Dr. Jaishankar's comment. What we are importing in India from Russia is a minuscule quantity compared to what Europe is doing. As he said, in one afternoon they consume or import more than what India does in a month or two. So really there's no debate, and nobody has raised that issue ever. In fact, if at all, the US Sherpa, my counterpart on the G20, when he met me and visited me in Delhi, probably end of March or somewhere thereabouts, he said we have absolutely no problem. You import any energy needs from Russia, any food grains from Russia, we have absolutely no problem. And I received an email from him that same evening, confirming to me. I said, you please confirm it in writing. And I've got an email from him saying that that's completely out of the sanctions. So I think it's people are raising this issue without understanding what the issue is in the first place.
And WEF in January, WEF in May, the sun is out, you're not slipping as you walk. It's very different. Which one do you prefer?
The Europeans, of course, may like the sun and the weather conditions now. But for us from India, given that we already have enough heat and heat waves right now in large parts of India, including Delhi, I think the winter Davos had an identity and a charm of its own. But having said that, we recognize that there were difficulties. I'm glad that they've organized it despite all those challenges. I'm glad that we can physically and personally meet and connect with so many leaders and political and business leaders at one platform once again. And
We just walked past HCL. If you see net, including the India Pavilion, the Indian states, Wipro I see right in front of us, there is more India. There's more India than any other country. What is it that our companies and states are seeing which others aren't? Why is there more India than any other country?
that's where the opportunities lie. That's where the world sees business potential. And to my mind, India is the place to invest. India is the place to do business with. India provides very, very focused, strong, stable leadership, very, very committed to the orderly development of India. They are seeing a new India, which was never experienced over so many years. And this new India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi has become the preferred destination of the world today.
Well, we wish you all the best. I see your staff frantically waving out. Your next meeting
We
is
have
here.
over 55 engagements already on the calendar in 3.5 days. And that's the excitement about India. I'm meeting leaders from across the world, business leaders of the top CEOs of large multinationals, which clearly shows the interest that they have in talking and working with India.
We wish you all the best. I hope you have
Thank you,
productive
Rahul,
meetings and thank you so
all the
much for
best
it.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today. You